Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining the Boost and Boost podcast. We are ready to go live for our first streaming. Chime in with any comments as we discuss this. My name is Seth. I'm own Wondering Gaijin Tuning out in Angeles City, Philippines, specializing in performance engine builds and ECU tuning, specifically Haltech and Imtron ECUs. I was in the Army for 20 years, 15 of which I served in special forces. Cody, we'll kick it over to you. Juan looks like he's still messing with this stuff.
Name's Cody Denton. Did 9 years in the Marine Corps. Met all of these guys um, over in Okinawa. Just a guy that's passionate about cars, and uh, I was fortunate enough to be able to meet all of them um, and start learning and powering through.
So, and then we have Juan down there. Juan, is your stuff working now? Can you hear
I
us?
think so. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good, buddy.
Okay. Hey, check it out, guys. So my name's Juan Mejia. I own Mejia Racing down in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Spent 4 years in the Army and was fortunate enough to be stationed overseas in Okinawa, where I met these guys. We're still missing one. But yeah, I've been in business about 5 years now, and I look forward to conversing with y'all.
Yeah, so Adrian Beer will join us later. Adrian's our resident drifter. I met him years and years ago in Okinawa along with these four. And basically, this podcast, Boost and Booze, we're going to discuss various things that come to mind. We pick a subject every week, and this week we're going to discuss getting started in the motorsports industry and sponsorship. This is a little bit more of a serious topic. We have our very first podcast we ever did over on YouTube. It was a little more lighthearted. Cody had a few drinks that night, but stay with us. Keep watching with us, and we'll be sure to cover anything that you guys want to discuss as far as motorsports, motorsport industry, owning a business, military service overseas. It's really open to whatever you, the viewers, want to hear us ramble about. But that's all it is. It's four friends just rambling. So with that, we'll let Adrian do his introduction when he shows up. Juan, why don't you kick us off, buddy, with how you got started in the business? I've known you for a long time. Back when you were just racing your Subaru and things like that. But how did you go from a guy doing gymkhana on the weekends to a guy that owns a shop working on custom Harleys, custom bikes, and then doing services on cars and having your own sponsored teams?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay, I'm just trying to mess with this stuff, man. So like Seth said, I started in Okinawa and started doing gymkhana, really getting my feet wet in the car industry. I've always been a car enthusiast, and one thing that really stuck with me was my drive to continue to excel and do better. Right. When I got out of the Army, I did spend some time in the restaurant industry, but I wasn't happy, and I realized I wanted to pursue my dream in motorsports. I was able to. I started working out of my house. I installed my own hard airlines and power and all that good stuff, and was running my garage like a shop. But then at that point, I had realized that I had taken on way more. I'd taken on way more than I can handle working out of my garage. So I was able to transition and find a property that was up for lease, and from there, I just really kind of blew up. I was able to go on and take on bigger projects, take on more long-term projects, and really focus on the building aspect. I had always done cars and bikes at the same time, and recently it wasn't until the last probably 2 or 3 years that we transitioned to solely bikes. Just because one, the custom paint design that goes into it, frame building, motor building, things of that sort. I learned that being having been working on cars for a substantial amount of time, I learned that motorcycles are very simple, right? It's the same thing. Everybody's got air, spark, fuel, compression. You just put it in a smaller package. So, like I said, I was able to do that and really take it, run with it. You guys can see behind me some of the stuff that I've got a chance to work on. I've got more pictures around, yeah. So that's pretty much how I got my start, man. I realized that people were getting screwed over at the dealership. They were taking their bikes and cars, et cetera, to the dealerships and getting charged outrageous prices. Living in a military town, you see that a lot. Unfortunately, people think that, oh, they're active duty, we can take advantage of them. They can always get credit, et cetera, et cetera. But realizing that I can have a positive impact on that and give people an affordable outlet, an opportunity to build the bike that they want to build, or get behind the wheel of a car that they really enjoy, and being able to take that to the next level. Last 2 years, we got into short track. We've done, a lot of drag racing, things like that, both cars and bikes. And it wasn't until the last 2 years we got into short track, and was able to get, other drivers involved and look for drivers to put behind the wheels of our cars, and get involved with the community at the racetrack, and really kind of take that and run with it. We're actually tomorrow's our season opener, and we'll be out there with Dale Earnhardt Jr. running his number 3 car in our late model series. So it's going to be pretty exciting, and I look forward to doing that.
Thanks, Juan. So I'm going to jump in here as well. So what got me started? I've always had a passion for cars since I was about 16 years old. And honestly, I was just too poor to pay anyone to work on my car, right? I couldn't afford the services of the professionals in the industry. So I just started taking stuff apart, I think like a lot of us did back then, and putting it back together and seeing if I could figure out how to make it faster, how to make it better. Got into motorcycle racing out in North Carolina, spent a lot of time at Virginia International Raceway on my Ducatis, my Triumphs. Big Ducati fan here. Used to follow the MotoGP. And I always just had a passion for motorsports. And I always had a passion for computers as well, cybersecurity, networking, things like that. So that naturally evolved into calibration of car ECUs and car computers. I wanted to understand how these systems could control the EFI, how it all worked together. And I was amazed by these guys you saw in the early 2000s on AAM version 1s, when standalones first came out, or, didn't first come out, let me rephrase that. When they became more mainstream, I guess, or more popular, common to see. Moved out to Japan, met these guys here, met Adrian, who again will hopefully be joining us here shortly, and realized that they were asking $1,400 US roughly to tune a Power FC at the time, which to me was absurd. I'd already been tuning my Ducatis, I've been tuning my personal cars for a while at that point. And so I started my business with a Pelican case, basically those tan Pelican briefcases you guys see, an innovative LC2 wideband, and a Panasonic Toughbook. And I went and made house calls. And initially, all we did was EFI tuning, right? That grew. So I got an opportunity through Adaptronic when it first joined, or when it first started up, to carry their products. Brought the Adaptronic modular line over to Japan. Did a lot of installs with that, and then my wholesale just kept growing, and I kept pursuing it, expanding my wholesale things, wholesale lineup, and ran a pretty successful business in Okinawa, Japan for about the last 8 years, give or take. And then I kind of felt like I hit a glass ceiling in Japan. Anyone that's ever lived in Japan, and I think a lot of the guys can attest to this, is you'll never be fully welcome in Japan. You're going to be always an outsider, always a foreigner. Right? And there's kind of a glass ceiling. You hear people talk about glass ceilings in business, and that's what it really felt like. Was there's sort of a glass ceiling, both in the space available to me as shops, the equipment that I was able to have in the country to do noise complaints and things like that, especially down in Okinawa. And so I started doing tuning support for some of the D1 teams down here in the Philippines. For the Drift Matsuri series ran by R102, Tony Araki and his crew up there in Okinawa, traveling around Asia, and started working with a couple of the cars down here, specifically Booty Dabasol, helped him out. He went on for the championship during the last D1 round, which was awesome. And then decided, there's more opportunity here. There's real racetracks. There's better space. And then just recently moved down to the Philippines. We just got our shop open and fully operational yesterday. Still waiting on the mainline dyno, and we're going to be doing it again out here. So that's kind of how I got my start and my road to success. I see we have Ryan here from Right Brain Design over on Instagram. Hopefully I can have him on as a guest here in the future, because he's definitely got a lot to contribute as far as knowledge and his road to success as well. So with that, Cody, I'm going to kick it over to you, buddy, to kind of talk about what you do.
So
Adrian's
honestly,
here. Nice.
I'm a just regular dude. Like I said, as far as work goes, run CNCs and plasma tables and that sort of thing, um, for a major steel production company. Um, and I've always had that passion for vehicles, but I was always that shade tree guy. I had my dad grew up with pro street cars. I was always around them, and that's where my love came from. Was my dad having pro street cars, having everything from under the sun, lifted Jeeps, lifted trucks, pro street trucks, um, and I stepped foot in Okinawa, um, and completely dove straight into the car scene, trying to meet people that were like-minded, that just wanted to have a good time, and I could learn from, because obviously knowledge is power, and I'm was willing to kind of do whatever it took in order to maintain relationships, in order to um, see my own personal development um, grow. I've said before, I met Seth, and if it was helping him in his garage for whatever reason, and I had spare time, I was there. Adrian, with if I still remember helping with his cars as far as out at the track. If something happened, best I could. And Juan, I mean, if he's had a call or whatever the case may be, and I've had, as far as how good of a dude he really is, and trying to help the community, like he says, you hear people say that that's what they do, but you don't see that necessarily. Um, he made a house call. He drove at that time before they made the bypass and whatnot, like 4 hours to my house to make a house call on my Harley. Um, and I've never asked for any type of breaks or anything like that. I'll pay because ultimately I want to see everybody succeed. I'm not going to ask for a handout, but he drove 4 hours, worked on my bike, um, paid him like I would anybody else, and he took off. I mean, and I think I've tried to maintain um, keep the friendship and professionalism separate, which I think later on when we talk about sponsorships and that sort of thing, um, it'll be seen. But yeah, that's pretty much me.
And Adrian, let's kick over to you, buddy. We're just doing a kind of an introduction on how you got started with your business. You're down there in Jacksonville, or I'm sorry, yeah, Jacksonville, Florida, right now, or Pensacola.
I'm like 2 hours south of there. I'm in Ocala, which is more people know it as an hour north of Orlando. My start in the business was as a driver more than anything, and being a broke driver. So I did everything myself, and I just kind of pushed my cars pretty hard and found the limitations of things. Like, I remember my first drift car, I blew the clutch out the first night out, and I learned how to do a clutch job that weekend. Like, it was being in Okinawa and you daily drive your drift car that you're beating on, and it has to be fixed for you to get to work on Monday. So you just find ways and ingenuity to make things happen and get back up and do it again. So yeah, I started by breaking my own stuff and finding ways to put it back together and make it last.
So that leads into kind of the next subject. We discussed last time before we had the streaming software, and we just posted it to the YouTube channels on podcast one was getting started, right? And is motorsport still obtainable? Has everything gone too far to the inflation for guys to be able to really get into motorsports anymore. And I think that's driven a lot of younger guys, a lot of younger teams, a lot of younger drivers to look at sponsorship, right? And sponsorship, I think, has become more accessible in a lot of ways, also watered down in a lot of ways, and almost more demanded by drivers. You know, we spoke a few days ago. We've got the upcoming Drift Matsuri here in May. We've got some international drivers coming down from Japan and Malaysia, I believe, Thailand. We have drivers coming in as well. And one of the drivers hit me up, an up-and-coming driver, you know, and he was talking about, hey, man, I put a lot of time, I put a lot of effort into this. I put a lot of my own money into my car, paying for Matsuris, paying to go to these events, and I'm just not getting noticed by sponsors. And why is that? You know, and the very first thing I asked him was, well, how are you marketing yourself? So I want to turn it over to Juan. I'm going to let him lead in with this, but sponsorship has to be looked at from two sides, right? We're going to have Adrian kind of discuss sponsorship from a driver's perspective. Me and Adrian had some run-ins in the past where he was driving and was looking for sponsorship when I was first starting out my business. He's also dealt with several other companies and, you know, really changed the way he's gone about sponsorship for his rides over the last 8 years or so that we've known each other. And then Juan, obviously coming from an amateur driver background, who decided to pursue the more profession, the mechanic side, shop owner side. And then myself, who has at this point a international reach of about 6 countries out of my shop. And I deal with a lot of drivers on a daily basis. So you kind of have a full spectrum look at the industry, if you will, from there. And I see that there's a few other shop owners that have joined us, you know, Ryan from Right Brand Designs, Bill from CPD or B&M Motors. And they obviously would have a lot to add to this as well. So Juan, I'm going to kick it over to you, man. Why don't you talk to us about sponsorship and what you look for in a driver? Because I know you have a couple sponsored drivers right now.
Yeah, guys. So the biggest thing that we look at is, you know, ROI, and that's something that we discussed before. Is your ROI, which is your return on investment. You know, what is the industry standard, right? We mentioned it before in our previous podcast. We talked about don't expect a monetary donation. You know, what are you doing to market yourself? How are you making yourself marketable? Are you being that squeaky wheel that's just eventually pissing people off? You know what I mean? Or are you going out there doing your thing, funding your own season, you know, showing your skill and really getting down to the nitty gritty of, you know, this guy can drive or gal, this guy or gal can drive. And you know, I have something to bring to the table. When we talk about sponsoring drivers or riders or whatever the case may be, when we talk about sponsoring people, it's an investment, you know, and that was mentioned before by Cody and Adrian both. It's an investment. You know, you're getting into a contract with a company that says, hey, I'm going to support you with gear. I'm going to support you with discount codes. I'm going to support you with, you know, if you're lucky enough, monetary donation to support your season. But what are you doing for me? Am I going to be marketed at all? Is my name going on the side of your car? How many events are you going to be running that year? How many events have you already ran this season, and how many more do you have left? And are you just a good person? You know, at the end of the day, we don't want to get into business with somebody that's going to, you know, be a snake behind our back and, you know, just trying to get money out of us and then turn around and talk down on us behind our backs. Right. We want to have somebody that we can trust, somebody that's got good character, that's going to represent our brand well. At the end of the day, it comes down to, you know, what's that return, right? Return on investment can be not just monetary, but it could also be, you know, how often are you buying our product? How many people are you referring to our product? How many people are you bringing in as far as foot traffic is concerned? So that's something that we got to think about. I see Josh out there. Stubbs, what's up, dude? Long time no see. I see Phil, my brother Romeo's up here. So I just want to give you guys a quick shout out. But like I said, that's at the end of the day, you know, those are some of the things that we talk about. You know, are you going to come out there? Are you going to go out there and shit the bed on, you know, oh, well, you know, come out with a chip on your shoulder and think that you're the next best thing since sliced bread. It's not going to work. You know, we want somebody that we can trust. We want somebody that's going to, like I said, represent us well, but then turn around and, you know, give something to us. Right. Especially as a business, it sounds kind of selfish that way, but you know, when we talk about,
let me jump in right there.
Go ahead.
Real quick, buddy. Because you brought up a good point. It's a great transition over to Adrian. You know, don't be the guy with the chip on your shoulder. And it's not picking on Adrian, but I think it's a really good point to bring up, especially I think Adrian, when he was a younger driver, was definitely that guy that kind of had the chip on his shoulder. He was putting a lot of effort in, and a lot of people don't realize some of these trips that you used to see him go on up to Ibizu with Craft Factory, one of the local drift teams in Okinawa and stuff. He was paying for those trips himself. It wasn't a full ride a lot of times for him. And so he definitely kind of had that, I'm doing all these things, why aren't you supporting me attitude on things, right? And so I want to turn it over to Adrian for just a second, and I want to jump back in here with a few points from my perspective as well. So Adrian, why don't you talk to us, buddy, from a driver's point of view?
So, all right, everybody. From a driver's point of view, I kind of developed, like Seth was talking about, from the early years where it's like, hey, I'm out here doing things at levels that other people aren't. I'm driving at a level that other people aren't. I'm building cars at a level that other people aren't. I need, like, when does the sponsorships come? And where I kind of messed up was I built the cars, like I funded the cars, I bought the parts, I went the full run, and then I turned around and I was like, hey, can you fill in these gaps or whatever to support me through a season? And what benefited me towards my later years was separating myself from this emotional attachment to wanting a sponsorship and standing back and understanding that when you go into a sponsorship, it's a contract agreement with a business that you are going to work to essentially obtain outreach and, like Juan was saying, return on investment. And in my early years, I didn't fully understand that. I didn't catch on to social media and outreach and a real following. So fast forward to the future here now, that's kind of my goal when I apply for a sponsorship is I go into something, I have an idea, and then I do my research on companies and I say, hey, I want to align myself with this company because at the end of the day, that sponsorship and from that company, you're saying that that's essentially your boss. That's who you're working with for that season or however long your contract is. So my goal is now if, hey, this company gives me $1,000 in cash, which is rare, or they give me $1,000 in parts, I want to give them that back, then some, and prove my worth to that company to continue doing business with them moving forward.
Yeah. So, Adrian, Juan, you both bring up good points. And I think the key aspect here that you've got to look at it from a driver's point of view, if you're someone going out, you're getting started in motorsports, you're getting started and you're reaching the point where, hey, man, I can't afford all the tires I need. I can't afford the registration for these events. And some of these events are really expensive, and hey, I can't afford to make it down to the next track day to continue my season to compete for points. You've got to start looking at your racing, your team, if you will, because that's what you're building. You're building a brand, and your brand is yourself, right? It's no different than Juan building Mia Racing, no different than me building Gaijin Tuning, right? You're building a brand, and that brand is a business. I go back to, I just recently got my first investor in my business ever. I've always built this business from the ground up. Excuse me. And it was a casual meeting. The point of the story is, I met this investor, and it wasn't a scheduled business meeting. It wasn't in a boardroom. It was down on a beach resort here in the Philippines. And through casual conversation, he was asking me things like, what were your gross sales? What was your net income? What was your customer base? How many customers did you have? Do you have examples of your work? Right. And I had those answers. And as a driver, you need to have similar answers. What is your branding? What is your social media following? What events are you running? How many championships have you been in? What do you need from me as a business? What is it that you're asking for? Are you asking for $100,000 to get through an entire season? Are you asking for discounts on tires? And then we can come to an agreement on what I can offer you, right? Because I'm evaluating your worth to me as well, right? So look at the businesses, like Adrian's saying, look at these people you're approaching for sponsorship, whether it's someone in the motorsports industry or it's your local grocery store, right? Your small mom and pop hardware store in your local town. What do you have to offer them? Is your social media reach larger than their social media reach? Obviously going to Juan at Mia Racing, his social media reach is an X amount. My social media is an X amount. Turn 14 or Vibrant Performance is obviously exponentially larger than ours, right? So understand who you're approaching and what you have to offer them. Cody, let's hear your thoughts, man. We've kind of left you sitting. I know this podcast subject isn't the best for you, just as our common day-to-day car guy out there, but I want to hear your thoughts on, separating business from hobby and understanding approaching businesses, sponsorship, things like that. Just from your take.
So for me, I mean, seeing not only y'all but other businesses that I've spoken with myself. Yes, I believe that you want every company wants extremely well car as far as the car world goes. They want that fast driver, they want that consistent driver, um, but the big thing that people lack nowadays, I believe, is being personal. I mean, you can go out and win every event, but if you're an asshole, nobody really wants to deal with you. Nobody wants their kids to look up to you. They want to see that person. And my perspective of it is, if I go out to an event, whether it's drift or drag or circuit racing, um, I want to go out and cheer on with my kids the guy that is not only out there trying to prove himself, but also, you know, wanting to lead that next generation. I want them to inspire my children, um, and it's not always easy. I mean, it's a business, and you can't give everybody every moment of the day. Stand out there for 8-10 hours and get pictures with everybody every single time. But I think if somebody's starting out, um, it's definitely something that needs to happen. Because if you have that good person mentality, you're going to have the company support is going to be I believe, a lot easier to obtain.
Yeah, I want to point out Nolan's comment right here to piggyback off that, right? Nolan Rear just posted, also engage with people. That is so, so critical. I used to follow MotoGP, and you get to meet these MotoGP riders, which are equivalent to the Formula One level of motorcycle, right? These are guys making millions of dollars racing at this point for factory teams. And there were drivers that were sociable and really, really nice. And there were drivers that were just so standoffish, they came across as arrogant and rude. It can change a fan base in 10 seconds. As a driver representing a company, representing whoever your sponsors are, you've got to make the time for people. And it's hard, right? Anyone that's ever competed knows that on track day, you're running around a million different directions. You're making sure the car's right. You're talking to your pit crew, your tuner, depending on what level you're at, or you're tuning your car, right? Or doing your own pit crewing. But you can't blow off your fans. The bigger you get, the more these people look up to you and they want to meet you, and they have come to the race to see. So definitely make the time for them. Try and schedule it into your weekend event. A meet and greet, or attending the after parties if the event's throwing them, things like that. It makes a huge difference, right? And it really shows your sponsor that you're serious about growing your following and your brand. Anyone got anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. You know what I mean? Going out, reaching out to people. One thing that really stuck with me is people will always remember how you made them feel, right? That's something that really stands out to me. Again, understanding that you make somebody feel good, you make somebody feel important, you make somebody feel like, hey, look, that driver sees me, man, and I'm just a spectator in the stands taking my kid to his first race. You know what I mean? That stands out to people. I know I've seen it 100 times over at my local track. I do it every time I get out there. I've got a 15-year-old driver, man, and that kid has so much character. It's not even funny. That kid loves to go out there and just hang out, talk. We haven't got to spend too much time at the track this season, but when he first got started, he was having a blast, man. And being able to see that and see that kind of interaction, other drivers coming up to talk to him and give him pointers and whatnot, is just it blows my mind. How open this community is. And I truly wish we saw more of that, across this whole clout chasing thing and the idea of that. So that's a good point.
That's Juan, you're right. You're 100% right. And obviously Nolan's a driver down here in the comments based off what he's saying. I had an interaction with Valentino Rossi and it was amazing. Yeah. He was very humble, very kind, even though he was super, super busy that day. I also had an interaction, and not to speak ill of the dead, I had an interaction with Nicky Hayden back in the day, the Kentucky kid from MotoGP. And he was absolutely arrogant and rude to me, which talking to other people was against his normal character, but that's all I remembered about him. Yeah, was Nicky Hayden is the driver that I dropped a ton of money on in a charity auction to buy his flag from the race, and he couldn't spare 30 seconds to sign it when I met him later that weekend. Right? And I have no idea. I couldn't tell you where Rossi finished in that race. I couldn't tell you where Nicky Hayden finished in that race over that MotoGP weekend, but I can tell you that Nicky Hayden was a prick. That's what I remember from almost 10 years later, and that goes universally across the whole thing, the whole spectrum, both as a business. I have my days too where I've lost customers because everything's gone wrong, everything's gone sideways. I'm under a deadline to finish a car, and I probably wasn't as nice as I should have been to people. That's why I've now hired customer service and front shop representation, because you learn from your mistakes. And there's other days that, it was a little bit slower paced, and I'd sit there and I'd bullshit with customers for hours about their car, because I could. And those customers definitely became more long-term customers. So yes, you have to give people the benefit of the doubt, but you need to be self-aware and conscious of it, both as a driver and as a shop owner, that we're talking about both sides of the spectrum in this chat today. So I'm going to kick it back over to Adrian. I want Adrian to talk a little bit more about no, Kevin, I do not still hate Link ECU. I tune them on a regular basis, actually, all the time. I do still hate ECU Master, though, for various reasons. That's going to catch me fire later. Mo Haltech, Mo Beta. Anyway, kicking back over to Adrian. I want Adrian to talk about kind of your journey with sponsorship, the experiences you had early on, because we had our run-in. And kind of where you're at now and how you approach applying to sponsorship differently. You had mentioned, how you send out hundreds of emails for a season, but you're also selective on who you actually let sponsor you at this point.
Yes. So, like I said, in the early years, it was just kind of like, hey, I need money. I need tires. I need fuel, whatever it is. I need these things. And as I kind of learned, like, hey, I'm not getting those things. Some of my friends are. And then I got to go through seasons and see what they were doing. I kind of like took it personally, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to be under the same stress that these guys are for a product that doesn't work. Right? Like, it was one thing to apply for a WiseFab sponsorship, a proven product that's high quality. They put a lot of engineering into it. But then at the same time, like, I'm also sending a sponsorship proposal to like an eBay company for the same like arms in the back, but they're like 10 times cheaper. Like, we know it's going to fail, right? So I didn't have a standard for myself, my racing program, and I didn't have the maturity to like understand that. Moving forward, after being sponsored for a few races and kind of going through some seasons, going through some shootout style events, I learned that I do want to be selective on who I attach myself to. I want a better product to support my racing program because that equals longevity, and you build a better relationship and rapport with them. Um, it when your racing's going good, when your car is up to spec, and it's not breaking all the time, you kind of have a better interaction and growth as a driver, on track and off track at events. Like, you get more time to network with people in the pits at these events. You're not fixing stuff. And you guys all know, anytime I went out, it was balls to the wall for like 3 days prior, after a typical duty day in the military. Get off. Now we're working on the car. And then Friday night, like, the car's got to be there Saturday morning at like 6 o'clock. And I'm firing up the car for the first time at like 5 a.m. Like, Seth, I'm pretty sure you tuned the car on the way to an event one morning.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a few of those cars that we tuned, and I tried to support you where I could. Back then, really, that's all I had to offer was my ability to tune. And sorry, I was answering some questions over on the Instagram feed that came in. Unfortunately, the Instagram doesn't feed into the main chat here, so you got to kind of split screen it and go back and forth. One thing you brought up, was being selective, and I want to bring it up because Kevin's in here as well, Sewell. So being selective, yeah. I encourage everyone, shoot for the moon, man. Apply for Olins, apply for WiseFab, apply for a Garrett sponsorship, but also think about the levels of sponsorship as well. And don't sleep on your local shops, right? I've produced my own products that I put a lot of time into doing CAD modeling and ensuring they're correct. I've gone back and forth with different manufacturers to try and make sure that the product that comes out is up to my quality, my standard, if I'm incapable of making it entirely in-house myself, right? I bring up Kevin because Kevin was one of the first guys that received a sponsorship from my man Donald up at Pinku Style when he released his Pinku Style coilovers. And I know he'd been working on those for quite a while before he released them to the public. And as far as I know, Kevin had pretty good success on those coilovers. Donald's coming down here. He's going to be driving the R33 Skyline that I have getting built in the back right now for the next Drift Mod Series. He's very, very serious about what he puts his name in. And I think that's true for a lot of the small performance shops out there in the world. For the guys in America or outside of Japan that are listening to this, understand that a lot of these shops, if you haven't been to Japan, if you haven't had that opportunity in your life, a lot of these shops, these high-end, if you will, chassis-specific shops, right? Kazama, Yamamiya, Magic. I'm going to speak to rotaries because that's what I work on a lot of, or I did in Japan. But you go to these shops and you're expecting this like huge thing, right? Because it's this high-end brand, and you show up in the shop's about 400 square feet, maybe 3,000 square feet on a lucky day if they're in Tokyo or Yokohama, right? But if they had not built that reputation through their marketing and through their success on the track, you would have never heard of them. You would have walked right by them just like any other local shop. So don't doubt the small shops that are specializing in tracks. Apply to those sponsorships. Talk to those owners. Build a relationship with those shop owners, right? That's going to help you in the long run because them coming out with a product, them starting, and they're probably a fairly established business if they are making their own products. But you're going to build a relationship with that shop, right? As their product comes up and you're using their product, you can come up with them, and that means being faithful to a shop as long as they're good to you through thick and thin. Through your bad seasons, you hope that they stand by you and continue to sponsor you because a sponsor can drop you under that contract, right? If you fail to perform. But if you have a relationship, they're more likely to stand with you. And it means standing with them when one of their products possibly fails as you push it. Because if they're sponsoring you on the track with it, you're essentially their R&D, right? You are their R&D platform in a lot of ways. They want you to go out and push that product. And if it breaks, well, that's feedback for both of us, as you as a driver, me as a parts manufacturer or a tuning shop, on how to improve it, right? So you've got to have that relationship, guys, and that's critical.
I do have something to say since you did bring that up. So my relationship with Kazama at the time, I did pay for everything, like you said, with the Craft Factory deal and stuff like that. I offered to R&D some of the stuff on his JZX lineup, and everybody knows that for a period of time, the knuckles on the JZX 100 were just popping out, like the ball joints were popping out, and it was more prone to happen if on the Kazama lineup. We actually went through like 4 iterations of knuckles, and I stood by it, like, because on the back end he was helping me out, and I love all the other products and stuff like that, and I kind of pushed forward. It was a little sketchy, but yeah, man, people would hit me up and be like, "Oh, the knuckles garbage," but as an unofficial sponsor driver, like I received benefits from them, I still stood with him, and I had to explain to people like, "Hey, it's not just junk. Like, this is why it's failing. Like, I'm not getting a knuckle, it's breaking, and I'm like, oh, this company's trash, throw it in the garbage, go with a different company. I'm sticking with the company who's supporting me. The knuckle's popping. We're looking at the ball joint. We're looking to see if it's heat, if the casing is cracked, if the bushing's bad, or whatever it is." And I mean, we went all the way down that rabbit hole to find out it was a discrepancy that's factory that was making the knuckles. And after that, he switched factories with a better QC process, and the knuckles came out great. But that whole time for like 2 years, man, everybody was like, I was the only one really running Kazama products. Like, I had the full Kazama JZX 100 like catalog chaser build, and dude, every day people are like, hate Kazama, 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 and that's what you have to deal with when you're in that predicament of, hey, you're a sponsored driver, and the products that you're using are failing. You do the R&D behind the scenes. You advertise like, hey, this is what's working. Push it out there, get them some business. But, you know, you can't just hop on the bandwagons because it's the cool thing to do. Your friends are doing it. Social media is doing it, and be like, oh, yeah, you know, this product is junk.
I will say this. For those guys that are business owners, both national and or intercontinental United States and international, I just want to say this part: don't be afraid to support other shops too, man. You know, you've got your start. If you got a successful business, congratulations. You know, it's definitely a challenge. Seth can attest to this. You know, many other business owners that follow me as well can attest to this. You know, it's never easy, right? If it was easy, everybody would do it, but not everybody gets into being a business owner. Now, on the other side of that, you know, when we talk about supporting other business, there's 3 other main shops around here that build bikes. And I tell them all the time, look, man, I'm not here to take competition from you. You know, there's plenty, you know, I'm not here to take business from you. There's plenty of business to go around for everybody. And understanding that as a business owner and not trying to snake the people, you know, undercut the people around you speaks volumes. You know, at the end of the day, I was at another partner shop, you know, a neighboring shop today, picking up parts, talking to the owner, you know what I mean? So that's one of those things. It's like, you know, we really got to go about, you know, go out and talk to those other business owners, learn how to run your business better, right? Because they might know something that you didn't. They might have failed at something before you did, and learn from that mistake. So, like I said, they're always going to be there to support you. We have some of our sponsors on our car right now that are other businesses in our local area. So I just wanted to put that tidbit in there.
And I want to say real quick that I think that if a company is coming out and saying, hey, this is an issue that we're trying to mitigate and we're working through, without, you know, just trying to blow the local consumer, myself, some of y'all, that if they're coming out and saying, hey, this is the issue that we're having and we're going to fix it for you, just give us a little bit of time. I think it shows vast amount of cojones to be able to come out as a man or woman, whoever owns that company, and say, we messed up. and we're going to fix it. And I think it says a lot about the company as far as, being able to stick by them, because ultimately, because I'm fix their issues, and other major brands that have had issues as well. And I think that it's something that you need to really sit down and think about, that if they're willing to take 2 steps back in order to progress along with somebody that wants that sponsorship, it says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
Absolutely.
good point.
There's definitely.
And that's what I was going to
Go
get
ahead,
to as we kind of go into wrapping this up too. One, as a driver, if you're a driver that's out there watching this live, or you're watching this after the fact when we post it up to the YouTube channels and things like that, or you watch it back on our Facebooks, and you want an example of what a proper professional level sponsorship packet looks like, reach out to myself, reach out to Juan, reach out to Adrian. Cody will send you something. I'm not sure it's a sponsorship packet, but he'll get you something back.
Look, I will say I will send out sponsorship packets, but my contracts are not as solid as some others. You know what I mean? I'm gonna expect my ROI to be a lot higher. I've got
And he's an
my own
expensive date,
personal
just for those viewers out there. He's an expensive date. I can attest to that.
my own personal builds are not cheap by any means. So we'll see those in the future, hopefully.
But yeah,
So we're
reach
putting
out
an
to us,
LS
guys.
in the 50 split window, right?
We'll be happy to provide you guys a copy of sponsorship packets that we've received that were good, or that we've come across throughout the industry. Adrian has several versions of his. I have a couple from pro international drivers touring Europe and the States as well at an international professional level. So we're happy to help you in that sense. That's kind of the point of this podcast, is to flatten the communication, if you will, to use a military term, between guys that own the business, guys that have been there and done that and driven. And also, as a driver, really stop and think about what makes you stand out. When you approach me as a business owner, there's 150,000 of you. Mm-hmm. Why are you special? What is your X factor? Why do I care who you are? Not to sound like a dick, but that's what it comes down to, right? Let's be blatant about it. Same thing for me as a tuner. Why should you let me tune your car? What do I have to offer you that the other guy down the road that's $100 cheaper doesn't?
I mean, I think that's a really good point. I could answer, that question from my personal standpoint, as far as, when I got to Okinawa, you had no clue who I was. I wasn't out there trying to take advantage of a business, which I know that wouldn't happen. But hell, I probably spent 6 months just standing around your shop and putting up tools, pissing you off because I put tools up that you're still working with, just so I could learn, and I think finally it was more like a sad puppy, and you didn't want to get rid of me. But I think if you, for the guy that's coming up, I think if you take that step back and sit and watch, learn everything that you can from the people that are successful, it'll work out in your benefit. I mean, it took, I don't know, probably almost 2 years, and then finally Seth let me work on his, or help him work on his personal vehicles. I mean, it says a lot that, that he trusted me, in the sense of I could get under there and fondle some trannies.
Yeah, you are good at holding a tranny. That's for sure. So, hey guys, we're gonna wrap this up. I wanna open it for any last minute questions anyone out there has, or comments. What can we do better? Obviously, this is our first time using the streaming software, so, and having all the live Q&A and input comments from you guys, that's awesome. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Just seeing everybody kind of being able to tap in, and you can see who's viewing. We can also watch ourselves too, but on top of that, being able to interact with you guys is pretty cool.
So I appreciate.
Tampa doesn't know how to build a proper SR.
I don't know. We're only doing things in Asia here. So anyway, we're gonna sign off here. Unfortunately, I have to run. I have a meeting with Gulf Oil this afternoon. Hopefully, picking them up. We'll jump back in. Please get a hold of us. Leave comments on this. Let us know what our next subject should be. We want to keep it lighthearted. This was a little bit serious conversation this time, a little more business oriented. It's not for everybody. We understand that, but hopefully it helps somebody out there. Cody is definitely our comic relief out of this crew. So we need to get a subject that lets Cody jump back in here a little more. We'll feed him some more whiskey next time, like we did on the first podcast. It'll make it a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Don't be afraid to tap in and message one of us that's on here. Reach out to us. Don't forget to give everybody a follow. We've all got our tags up here. You got the Real Cody P. You got Skinny 5 Racing, Mahir Racing, and at WGT Wandering. Guys, you can tune in. Don't forget to tap in, guys. And for sure, man, we definitely need topics because we go back and forth in our group chat about 100 times a day trying to figure out what the hell we're going to talk about next, man. So, like I said, we definitely need it.
Yeah, our group chat would probably get us canceled faster than anything, the shit talking between us. But as far as, Romeo said, bake sale and barbecues. Hey, at the end of the day, you got to do whatever it is that you got to do in order to get out and build your car or race. I mean, that's how I think. I mean, that's how we all are. I mean, if it's something that you're passionate about, it almost has to make you look insane in order to want to do it.
Dude, to get my first short track car, I was running a business and working. I was moonlighting over at Advanced Auto, delivering parts that would normally be delivered to my own shop, just so I can buy a bomber car and put a 15-year-old behind the wheel. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that is just like, and that's just an example. It's I was out there working side jobs, trying to side hustle. At the end of the day, if you want to race, you're gonna race.
Yeah, I mean, dude, we've all done it. 60-hour weeks in the military. That's not a standard Monday to Friday thing. We get home. We've got customer builds and cars that we take care of. I was crew chiefing while I was on the West Coast of the United States. When I came back from Japan, I was going on road trips like 16 hours out of town, dude. I was getting flown across the country to do things. I've got people like mailing me things to do, and you make the time and find the time to do these things, because at the end of the day, whether it's you're doing time trial, circuit, roundy round, drifting, drag, whatever it is, like racing is racing. As drivers, we have our own opinions about other forms of the sport, but at the end of the day, we all share the same passion for doing it. And you just got to be dedicated, and you find ways to make things happen the same way you find ways to make your car run the day before the event. Or in my case, I'm putting in fire suppression an hour after tech starts and I'm late to practice. Like the day of a pro-am shootout, like you'd make things happen. All right.
All right, guys. I got to sign off. I'm getting the desk stare from my corporate secretary right now. Apparently, I'm late for all sorts of meetings. So I'll see you guys next week. I'm going to end this live stream. If everyone can just say goodbye real quick.
Yeah, man.
Peace.
I appreciate you guys tapping in, dude.
Peace.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Out.